COVID-19. Okay, do I say sorry for like not posting? Do you think?
You're not one for apologizing.
Okay, we're in a new kitchen. That's why I haven't posted a video in a bit. It's because I've been moving. It's not quite set up yet, but it's set up enough that we can cook in it now. So we're gonna make a little. I used to work at a restaurant where we did like a fried bread serving at the table instead of like baked bread. So we're gonna do a version of that, but turn it kind of with a Chinese influence of like kind of like a green onion cake, but on fried bread. So this is a super simple, like basic white bread dough recipe. There's 2 cups of warm water in here. I put 1 tablespoon of dried yeast in there, and a teaspoon of sugar and a half teaspoon of salt. I'm just letting the yeast activate when it's starting to bubble. This is like pretty good. Basically, this step is just to make sure that your yeast is good, and you don't have to like wait a certain amount of time. Once you see bubbles, you know that your yeast is alive, so you're good to go. And then you can do your dry. You can do the salt and the sugar and stuff with the dry. Preferably a baker would tell you to do that, but I like it to dissolve in the water because I find it mixes a little bit better. And we just got all-purpose flour. I need like, let me just check my recipe. 2.5 cups of flour. And this is like such a simple dough recipe that you don't need like, I mean, if you have a stand mixer, absolutely do this in a stand mixer. Add your dry bit by bit and use the dough hook attachment. But I'm just gonna make it with chopsticks. It's pretty easy. And we'll probably, when we need it, we'll add a little bit more flour. So keep your flour close by. 1/8 of a cup of, you can use shortening, you can use lard. I have sunflower oil, so I'm gonna use sunflower oil. This is just to keep the bread tender. Okay, so I got the dough out of the bowl, and it's all one dough. And I'm just gonna knead it for a bit. Take away some of that stick. And basically kneading, you're just figuring out ways to fold it back onto itself. That's it. It'll start to get a little bit sticky. Make sure your surface is floured. Make sure your hands are floured so it's not sticking to your hands. And if you're finding that it's sucking up all the flour like here, just make sure that you're adding more as needed. But just knead it about 3-4 minutes. If you like have a white bread dough recipe that is like a family recipe or whatever, and you use that to make bread, you can use the same dough. It's just you can use any recipe you want. It's just a generic white bread dough recipe. It's more about how we're cooking it that's different, but all of them are pretty much the same philosophy. A stainless steel bowl. I just rubbed a little bit of oil on it so that it's easy to get this out when it proofs. And then I'm also gonna put a little bit of oil just on the top because we're gonna saran wrap it and I don't want it to stick to the saran. That's it. We'll just put it somewhere warm. I'm gonna put it in the windowsill here and that'll be ready in about 45 minutes. Okay, so while that proofs, we're gonna make a little topping. And you can just use, obviously I'm gonna use chili oil. I want a little bit of spice. which I should have another batch for sale soon-ish. But if you don't have that, if you don't have my chili oil, then you can just use a bit of sesame oil. I'm actually going to use my chili oil and a touch of sesame oil. And what you want to do is just heat this. You can just use a microwave if you want. I'm going to use this. And then we're just going to heat it up and we're going to pour it over a bunch of scallions. So we're going to put in a bowl. We're going to put these in a bowl. We're going to lightly cook these scallions a bit with the hot oil, but I'm going to season them first. And so I'm going to season them with a bit of, just have a little bit of Chinese 5-spice, and a little goes a long way. So maybe, you know, 1/8 to a 1/4 teaspoon. About a teaspoon, not even, same amount of sugar. A little bit of black sesame. So we're gonna pour this over and this is gonna cook these scallions. Same pot, I just put about a 1/4 cup to a 1/2 cup of butter. And I'm just gonna melt that so that I can pour it over this as well. The butter doesn't have to be hot. It doesn't even have to be fully melted, honestly. We just want it soft enough that we can mix all this together. Yeah, it's melted. There's still a chunk in there, but that's okay. So since we got some time to let this proof, our bread to proof, we're just gonna get this reserved to the side. And you want it to be like a little bit cold. Like you can use, ideally you would use softened butter. So if you, we just got home from getting groceries, so I just melted the butter, but ideally, yeah, just leave your butter out for a couple hours and it'll be softened, and you can just take this scallion mixture and put in softened butter. And softened butter is ideally the texture you're looking for to then use on the bread when we cook it. But since this is melted butter, I'm gonna put it in the fridge just to firm up a little bit. It's risen a bunch, we're gonna punch it down. Also, I realized I'm pretty sure I don't remember what I said, but I think I might have said the measurements wrong, so I'll put the real measurements in the description for once. And most of the time I don't put the measurements because I like a lot of times I'm cooking these things, I'm just like freestyling and using the bit of knowledge I have, and in hopes that I'm encouraging people to do the same, because it's not that complicated and you can make really nice food if you understand food. So really the measurements of stuff are not that important. I would like to teach you guys how to cook and not how to just follow a recipe, because anyone can follow a recipe, and if the recipe is written properly, it should turn out. So I'm just gonna, you can use a kitchen scale and like weigh these so that they're all the same size. It's just me and Brendan eating, so we're just gonna make some small ones, and then I'm gonna put the rest of this dough back in the bowl. And this will hold for a bit, so I can eat this for the next day or two. And then you can use, like, if you wanna get really fancy, you can use a rolling pin. But with a rolling pin, you kind of get all the same size. And that's kind of not what I want, because I want some parts to be soft, some parts to be crisp. I like this is the fried bread we had at the restaurant that I worked at. That was one of the beautiful things about it, was that it wasn't too perfect, and there was some crispy bits and some more breadier pieces. I got some oil heated up in a pan. Just gonna put them one side down. We'll see if we can fit maybe 3 in here. There we go. Nice and brown. Middles, like all this kind of stuff is the really thin, like more crispy stuff. And then the stuff that's risen is like breadier. So you get all these cool textures as you eat it. So So we're gonna add about a tablespoon each. And then just let this kind of melt into the bread. Spread it around. And then once it's spread around, fat kind of works as an adhesive. So now it has something to stick to, and we can season this bread with salt. Be decently generous with the salt here. Bread takes a lot of salt.
Oh, it was?
Part of it, yeah, for sure. Alright, so we got all these cute uneven pieces. I'm just gonna plate them however. I'm not gonna get too fancy with this one. Fucking if I can get the bread out of the pan. If you got one of those egg flippers, this will work really nice for that. But you know, new kitchen, we still got limited tools. We're still not balling. That's that, and I'm gonna take, because I heated up some of just the oil from the chili oil before, but now I'm gonna take some of just the chunks and strain out some of this oil. We got the peanuts, the chilies,